Perfect, perfect. Well, hello, everybody. As you can tell, I am not Jessie. I am filling in for her tonight, but it's going to be... Sorry, I think I got muted there for a second. But thank you all for coming to another night of Empowerment Week. This is our last Empowerment Week of 2021, so thank you all for coming with us. We have another amazing presentation tonight. Tonight we have Jessica Keogh with us. She is from Pennsylvania, and she helps teach students how to regulate their emotions. She was born with a muscular, sorry, I had to move my notes here just a little bit, with muscular dystrophy, and she has dedicated her life to educating, advocating, and empowering people with and without disabilities to their most empowered lives. So with no further ado, we are going to give it over to Jessica as she talks about her nonprofit and advocacy.
All right, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. And Jackie, if you give me the ability to screen share, I can, because I have a little PowerPoint here just to help us stay on track as well. So. Perfect, got it. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, bear with me. Oh yes, and while I'm sharing my screen, please drop your name in the chat to win. What is it, Jackie? Is it the Kendra tires?
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Yes.
Yes, I forgot to add that in. We have a sponsor tonight. Kendra Tires is giving away a free set of tires for any manual user. So if you are a manual wheelchair user, please drop your name in the chat to be entered for a pair of tires.
Awesome. I am not a manual user, and they need to make ones for power wheelchairs, but I'm psyched for y'all who get to enter this. All right, my screen should be shared. I'm gonna hit present, and it's loading. Any moment now. All right, cool. So I'm Jessica Keogh, and I am the founder of Faith Above My Ability, and I am honored to be here as part of the Wheel With Me team. They put on an amazing empowerment week throughout the year, so I'm just honored to be here. And this section is called Wheel Change Needs to Happen, and it starts with us. So I have to say, Jackie and I kind of came up with this title together just to be like, to have it be snazzy. Actually, it was mostly Jackie. So yeah, I'll go over what we're doing and all of that too. And I really enjoy, whoops, go back a little. There we go. I really enjoy interaction. So like, feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat. It's a little hard to navigate the chat when I'm presenting. So maybe like Jackie or Brianna, if you can help out there, but I really don't want this to be like me talking with you guys or like talking at you guys the whole time, because I want this to be an interactive experience. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about myself here. So like I said, I'm Jessica Keogh, founder of Faith Above My Ability, and I'll get into that a little bit because it goes with my advocacy story. I am a special education teacher. I have been teaching for 11 years, and I teach emotional support at the middle school level. So that entails a lot of different things. And one of those things being like regulating emotions and navigating through like different life's challenges, which I'm sure we can all relate. And then instead of calling myself an advocate, I like to call myself an agent for change or a catalyst for change, because I'm in the business of helping people and empowering people to like live their best life. because of their strengths that they were given and that they develop. And then that is the Instagram for Faith Above My Ability. So feel free to follow it. I'm going to go over the pictures too as I share my story. So the top right picture is of me and my bestie. This was during COVID. That's why I was wearing a mask. But my bestie, she'll be popping on here soon. We have been best friends, like she's my ride or die for 21 years. And she is my right-hand lady for everything like Faith Above My Ability and life. So yeah. All right, we are going to do something that is so not me. I am like really big into promoting not promoting, like practicing gratitude and being grateful and all of that. So we're going to change it because this goes with the story that I want to tell you guys today, like my story. So things that really, really bother you, like I want to hear what they are. So you can unmute yourself. Things that like make you look like that bottom left picture where you have steam blowing out of your ears, because we all have things that really irk us. Like I want this to be unfiltered. Just know that we're recording. So like, if you don't want the whole world to see it or hear it, then don't share it. But be your authentic self, things that really bother you, really annoy you, and just make you like, I want to change this. So go, like, help me out here.
Parking, like parking in the disabled parking and not disabled, or like you can't like necessarily tell. Like, I mean, I know there are people that obviously do need it and you can't necessarily see it all the time, but there are people that do not need it that park there or park over the lines. Things like that.
Yeah, parking in the lines is my favorite thing that annoys me, especially when it makes me late for work. Yeah. Love it. Thanks, Jackie.
Playing off what Jackie says, recently I made a hotel reservation out of state and they gave my room away to non-handicapped people. By the time I got there, they didn't have a handicap room for me to stay in because they had given it away to able-bodied people. So that's super annoying. And then the other one that is my biggest annoyance is insurance. I'm sure we all know fighting with insurance for anything that we need as a necessity is awful. I literally cried 2 days ago because of a breakdown, but different story. But yeah, those are my annoying things.
Yes. Oh, insurance is infuriating sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes I have to pull over the car while I'm screaming. Yeah. Perfect. Anyone else want to share? And it doesn't have to be like disability related. It can be, it cannot be, like just things that really, really get under your skin. And I have never started a presentation this way, just so y'all know. So.
I love it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
If we're going outside of the disability community discussion, I'll throw out the fact when in my line of work, it's especially prevalent, but when it's so one-sided political discussion.
Yeah.
Or viewpoints, I should say.
Fair.
Yeah. Like not being open or just even like shutting down someone based on a value.
Yeah. Anyone else? I think Jackie, you were going to say, oh, go ahead.
For me too, it's kind of, the insurance thing as well. It's just really, really frustrating. And it almost like, it gets to the point where it's like, it almost gives me or like takes away my hope, But I also think like for me, since I'm a pretty high level quadriplegic, I just hate asking for help constantly, with certain things. And it just like, it gets to the point where I get like super angry about it. But, I take the time and cool down and stuff. But yeah, that's something that just like really truly bothers me.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to that because Chelsea, like I ask for help, like I don't want to say a lot, but there's a lot of things that I need help with. And sometimes I don't want to, and it's frustrating. And that's part of my story that I'll share later. But anyone else like Tyler or Laura, I think Jackie, we're gonna say something too.
I know
or
something. I know something that Jessie would say.
Jody.
Jessie would say that
What
she's.
would Jackie say?
Jessie would say she hates waiting for people, like, you know, like whether it be like, parking, and they parked in handicap, and so she has to wait to get in her car, or waiting for help to do something, things like that.
Yeah. It's definitely humbling when you have to wait. There can be. Anyone else? Kevin, you're on.
I'll throw another one out. This one is actually in the disability realm. Especially when I'm at my job, and I've been at my job the longest out of anyone in my company. And when customers especially go out of the way to ask a question to someone besides myself, even though I'm right there, they will go out of their way to find someone else to ask the question to, because the obvious.
Right, because you use a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's fun. Jody typed in the chat, like, do you have a license to drive that thing? Oh my gosh, the amount of times that I've heard that is cringeworthy. That and like, oh, you're gonna get a speeding ticket. Like, yeah, you're the first person to say that. It's fantastic. All right, is there one more thing in the chat here? I would say dealing with insurance as well. Oh, Laura, the question is things that really bother you. So like people have said dealing with insurance and disability stigmas, parking in the lines. Insurance is a pretty common thread here.
Laura says when they talk to me like a child.
Yeah, right. Like they get all like crouched down and like use a different voice. So
yeah, I never understood the eye level thing.
Yeah.
Just my thought. I mean, I know some people do like it. I don't know too many people that do, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just tired of people like crouching down. So my chair raises up now. And what I say to people is like, yeah, I'm just not at butt level. So that's nice too. So yeah. All right, there's one more thing in the chat, or is that what you just read?
Brianna said inconsistency.
Inconsistency. Yeah. So do you want to elaborate on that anymore?
Yeah, I am a creature of habit and structure. So if someone will be like, yeah, I'll do this for you, or I got this under control, and then they like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. Or, I mean, we all forget things once in a while, but if it's like a continuous thing where they're like just slacking all the time, like I can't handle it. I need a routine of some sort. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm very far from perfect, but I don't just wing life, and that freaks me out.
Yeah, I feel that. All right, so like I said, I don't typically start a presentation with this because I really make it my like daily practice, and sometimes Laura has to remind me, which I'm grateful for, that like of things to express gratitude for. So the reason I tell you this is
Laura has one more. Laura said how slow caregivers move.
All right, I was taking a sip of my hot chocolate and almost spit it out. But yeah, absolutely. So there we go. So I started it out this way because a very wise person has said a similar like wording of this, that sometimes that very thing that annoyed us, or that very like very, very negative emotion, is exactly what we need in order to propel us forward. And when I have to remind myself of that. But when I heard that, literally, I was like mind blown. And I'm like, yeah, actually, that's how my story started, with like advocacy and faith above my ability and just like things that I do. So this part of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I did put in parentheses there that is in short, because I don't like talking at people. I like talking with people. So I'm going to start from the top of this funnel and like go down to like how I found my purpose. And then we'll tie this into advocacy and making change and what you can do. Because we all just identified things that like really annoy us. So I was born with a disability. My parents started noticing signs around like 18 months. Took me to like some of the best doctors on the East Coast, like here, there, you know, muscle biopsies, tests, all of that, fighting with insurance, things like that. And I like, you know, the cause was never, or not the cause, the name of my disability was like never fully identified. Like they were just like, all right, it's some kind of muscular dystrophy. And for those of you who don't know about muscular dystrophy, there are literally 42 different types, and some of those types have like 3 different subtypes. So it's like, cool, we have this like really wide umbrella, but like no name. And, you know, so that's how, like, and to this day, I'm 33, I don't have a like specific type of my muscular dystrophy. And now they're even like, is it muscular dystrophy or is it like neuromuscular? So, you know, anyway. So I was born with a disability. I am the oldest of 3. I have a younger sister. She's 2 years younger than me. And then I have my baby brother, and he is 10 years younger than I am. So I grew up disabled, and my disability has changed over the years. Like growing up, I walked, I played soccer, definitely was not good at it, but I tried it, tried some cheerleading, you know, and that was fun, but like, I was in 3rd grade. So like, if I fell, I would get back up again. If I tried that now, like I would be like fully not in a good space. So I grew up disabled. My parents, you know, especially my mom, like she taught me to really, really advocate for myself. Like, oh yeah, like they never like, no, you can't do that. It's like, sure, you want to do soccer? Let's try it. You want to do cheerleading? Great. Basketball was the only thing they really said no to because we just weren't really sure how it was going to work out. So, you know, they like always was like, yeah, we'll find a way. And that's how I grew up. So in high school, I had a couple unique experiences. I had surgery and I was out for some time, and I came back and I was using a scooter. I chose to use a scooter because at 15, I was like, yeah, that's cooler than a wheelchair. Like, I'll use that. It's like a mini car and I'm not driving. So this is what I'm using. And when I came back, I like started getting more like stares than I thought I would, because like I grew up in that town. And then like I heard from a friend and another friend, and this one teacher was talking about me, and how literally that this like, she was a biology teacher, I think, and I remember her name, but I won't say it because we're recording. But she flat out said to one of my friend's classes that like when they were talking about evolution, that I wasn't like fully evolved or something like that because I don't have like thumbs that move. Like, yeah. So, yep, I was part of the evolution lesson, and I was like, oh crap. And I was like 15, and I was like, oh, like this is weird. And that's when I really started like getting, like, I really started realizing that like there are real stigmas and there are real problems with disability. Like I had just grown up with a disability, like my best friend, Laura, has a disability, and I went to camp and all of that. So like I was around disability, like growing up. So when I like started having these weird moments, I was like, all right. And then my family moved middle of high school. So imagine like being 16, moving in the middle of high school, having a disability. So we moved to Pennsylvania, and I was not a super happy teenager at that point because I didn't want to move. And I was like, how am I going to navigate like just starting over and all of that? But part of the reason I tell you that is it ended up working out because, and this was part of like, this is part of my story too. So when we were like planning for college and what I was going to do, there were some very real things that we needed to figure out. And being the oldest, my parents have never, you know, they didn't go through the college process with other kids like before them, other than themselves. And that was a long time ago. So like, how was I gonna get my shoes on? How was I gonna do this? How was I gonna do that? Like, because I still needed help with that. And like, my disability wasn't getting better, right? Like it had changed. Like I was using a wheelchair, all of that. So my school really was like, well, there's this great university and it is really great right down the street. Like, why don't you go there? They have a great teaching program. And then that way your mom can help you. And I was like, no, like I don't want to have my mom coming into a campus like dorm to help me literally get dressed. So I was like, that is not the answer. And then they're like, how about community college? I was like, no thanks. Like, that's not like, I want the full college experience. So because we moved just by happenstance, we moved right next door to somebody else who used a wheelchair and they had cerebral palsy. And my mom was talking to their mom and like figuring out what resources were available. And I ended up going to Edinburgh University up in Erie, PA, because they had a great disability program at that point. But had I not moved, I wouldn't have found that out. Like I could have just gone to Westchester and had my mom come, which like I think would have taken my life on a whole different trajectory. So I was at Edinburgh for 4.5 years doing my elementary and special education work, loving like college life, loving learning, you know, getting all of those experiences. And part of being a teacher, you have to do field experience and student teaching. So let me let this person in, there we go. So right before I was getting ready to do field experience, I met with the special ed advisor for like where I was going to be placed and all of that. And he was the special ed chair of the university, like of that department. So he was like, yeah, well, you know, you're really not going to be a teacher because of your wheelchair. And I was like, oh, really? So, you know, everything she said, I kind of rebuked and had a different answer and like justified why I could do it. And she, hold on, guys, there we go, letting people in, admit and admit. All right. So she really had, sorry, I think we got it all. She really had like this belief in her head that I wasn't going to be a teacher. And I was like, wait, I just spent 2.5 years of my time working my literal behind off. And now you're telling me. So I was furious. And, you know, I just kind of sat there, rebuked all her comments. And then when I left, I was like a complete train wreck. And I was like, how is this possible? And, you know, I had like a little midlife crisis, midlife college crisis, whatever. And I took different tests and all the career tests were like, oh, teacher or social worker. So I ended up sticking it out. And fast forward, my first job was in Reading, Pennsylvania at a high school level. I was really lucky to get a job like right out of college because like it just doesn't always happen that way. And I was loving life, loving teaching, loving my kids, all of that. And because I need different supports to get ready for work, like literally like getting dressed, all of that kind of stuff, like activities of daily living, I was on a waiver that allowed me to have care attendants to come to my house. Well, about 6 months in of like my new job, I'm still all hyped, loving teaching. I get this letter in the mail saying like, well, you don't qualify for this anymore. Sorry, like you're making money. And I was like, crap. So, you know, I was like, what am I going to do? I can't put my shoes on, et cetera, et cetera. And I started like asking questions, calling people. And I really found out that they just don't, like the people that I was talking to, they didn't know the answers. And meanwhile, I wasn't getting the service that I needed. So I was like, how am I going to get to work? All of this, trying to figure it out, talking to coworkers, all of that. But I quickly learned that there are income limits for people with disabilities who need assistance. And it is of no fault of my own that I need assistance, and I don't make enough to pay for someone to come in. So I was furious. I was like, how am I going to do this? You know, and I kind of turned into, and I know Jesse has like talked about this, like being like a angry disabled person, and that is so not me. Like, I'm not an angry person. And I turned angry because I wasn't sure what to do. I wasn't prepared for this, all of that. So at that moment, I decided to like make a choice and advocate for myself and my future students who like will definitely have disabilities, and try and make some change. I started having like meetings with legislators and school boards, and like, how can we connect the gap between high school and college and high school and work? Because like, I just like kind of fell off a cliff, didn't know that it was going to happen this way. So I started using that negative, like really horrible emotion to put myself in motion and create change for myself and for others. And then I think it was 2017, 2018, I had the opportunity to go to a small country called Transnistria. It is near the Ukraine. And it was a mission trip. We worked in orphanages, and it was through my church. And I was really hesitant about going because I was like, how is my disability going to be perceived there? Like, can I even get in half these places? And at that point, like, I was walking way more than I walk now. So I went and like completely trusted God. And that is when like I was working with kids and working in the orphanage and like sharing my story, talking to some of these other people who are like in a completely different culture where disability is so taboo. Like, they had never seen someone who looks like me out in public because they have a special orphanage for people with disabilities. Like, and they stay there, and you're not even allowed to visit that orphanage. So at that point, that's when I had like the divine intervention, and I was like, all right, how am I going to use my skills and this experience to make positive change? And I started blogging, and after blogging a while and sharing my story as a woman with a disability and like a working professional, I was encouraged by some friends to start a nonprofit, and thus Faith Above My Ability, connecting people to resources, empowering them, things like that. So that was a lot, and I don't love talking at people, but there is a point to this, and I see there are some things in the chat, so I'm going to address those. Awesome, nice to meet you. No worries, Tyler. And you probably left already. Okay, fantastic. So at this point, does anyone have any questions just about my story? Because I'm going to tie it into advocacy in a moment, like, and why we're here. No? Cool. And I will say just real quick, this picture is our logo, and those are my hands, because like when you put them together, it's like a little heart. So yeah. All right. So first steps to advocacy is knowing what's important to you. So I want to hear from you guys, because I've talked a lot. What is important to you? You can just like shout it out. What are things that are important to you?
Helping other people be heard.
Awesome. What else? Oh.
Sorry, I lost it.
Just staying involved. Staying involved
is important for you. Perfect. Thanks, Lena.
I would say my care, and also advocating for myself and others.
Perfect. Anything else? No.
I would say sharing my story and help motivating others through my journey.
Awesome. Love it. All right, I'm trying to hit the back arrow here. I'm having some technical difficulties, so bear with me. I'm going to stop my share for a moment. But anything else that's important to you?
This goes along with what other people kind of said a little bit, but like showing advocacy through action, like showing the ability to achieve anything, even with or without a disability, through just your life, and like your life being the example of advocacy, basically.
Perfect. Cool. So the first steps is really, like I said, knowing what's important to you, because that's going to be like what drives you, your why. And then understanding and like maybe even researching your purpose. So like, I'm a firm believer that we all have a purpose, and you know, it is our responsibility to live out that purpose. So beginning to understand that, talking to friends, talking to people who like lift you up, and then also acknowledging that when things get rocky, like what or who is your foundation and where does your worth come from? Because it can't come from your accomplishments, because those are temporary. Like, yeah, your accomplishments can feel really great, but if you're getting your worth from external sources, then like when something not so great happens, which like such as life, you're going to feel really crummy. So having that like firm foundation is going to be super important. So I actually have an image to the right, and this is Kevin's brand that he's building, but I like this because it goes through kind of the first steps of what I just talked about, like figuring out what your purpose is, tying it into your passion. So if you're really passionate about like working out or really passionate about sports, like tying that into your purpose, knowing like what your foundation is and like your identity. So I identify as a disabled person. Some people don't, you know, like they might say a person with a disability, you know, disabled person. And like, I've kind of struggled with that throughout my life. Like, but it's a core part of who I am. It's not everything I am, but it is like the biggest physical, like identifier of who I am. Something in the chat. Awesome. All right, let's see if I can click here. Guys, my computer is slow. All right, advocacy how-to. So what I started to do was I started to share my story. So when you share your story, you should put it out there to people. Like, remember to be yourself, to not keep it like, you want to keep it to the point, because when you're meeting with legislators or other stakeholders, like for me, it's like school people or, you know, like school boards and school officials and legislators. So whoever like is going to help you get to your advocacy goal, you want to share your story with them, because we all need, like, we all love to hear stories. It's a way to learn, and it's a way to share why you're doing what you're doing and why it's important, like that personal connection, because we are, and that leads into the next part, the network and building relationships. Like, we as humans are like relational people. Like, we crave relationships. We crave people who are like us, people who want to do the same things as us. So building that relationship, sharing the story, And then following up is so important. So if you go meet with a legislator or you go meet with somebody about a job that you want, you better like follow up in an email after, or follow up on a phone call, whatever. I prefer email because it is clear, it is right there. And you know, what if they don't answer the phone? So that's what I started to do, is when I was mad, I took that energy and I was like, all right, who can I talk to? And I started researching, who are my local representatives? Who are my legislators? And I would meet with first the office, because that representative might not be available. And the office people that you talk to on the phone, they are just as important as the representatives themselves, because they're the ones that manage the schedule. They're the ones who, you know, write the posts or the letters or whatever. So building a relationship with them is equally as important as building the relationship with a representative or a school board member or whoever, whatever stakeholder. And when you meet with that stakeholder, like, do your research on them. What do they like? What was their past job? Like, what do they do for fun? You can find anything on Google and you can find information about them, and you can tie that nice and neatly into a conversation about, like, just to kind of build that relationship. Because if you go in there with like just your ask and like, hey, well, I really need a curb cut here because I want to get into Ulta, or I want to get into this sporting goods store, they're going to be like, okay, cool, thanks. Like, I'll look into that and peace out, right? But if you start and have a conversation, that will like open up a whole new door. Relationships are so, so important. And then stay grounded in your why. So like I said before, things are going to get rocky. Things are going, like, you're going to have hurdles thrown your way. You're going to have people who disagree with you. You're going to have people who take your success as like personal, and they don't like that. So you'll have people like badmouth you or whatever. Like, it's just a reality. Stay grounded in your why you're doing this. Like, my why has never been just for me. It started out with me because it was personal, but then I was like, crap, this affects my students and their future lives. So I constantly have to remember it's not just about me. To the left, I have the methods of communication. So I was involved in some policy work in Pennsylvania and some legislation that ultimately passed in July and was signed into law. And it was to increase the income limits for workers with disabilities. And part of what we did was we created infographics, we created letters, we created petitions, and we sat there. I think that's on the next slide. We like sat there and handed out materials, talked to people, all of that. Yep, that's on the next slide. So always, like, when you're becoming an advocate and refining your skill, always be willing to learn. There are people who have gone way before you. Like, reach out to them. How did you do this? Like, I want to learn from you. And there are books to read. There are like classes to take. There are things like this that Wheel With Me does and Faith Above My Ability does. Like, be willing to learn. You don't know everything, and you likely never will know everything. And that's okay. As long as you're willing to learn, you can propel forward. Finding your tribe, like finding those like-minded people. And that's what I love about Wheel With Me. And it's like, we have Sunday night calls about like fitness and nutrition and like our goals. Like, just finding people who can lift you up is so important, because when you're being successful, like I said, there will be those naysayers. There will be those people who don't agree with you. Stick to the people who are fanning your flame. Be persistent. So in my advocacy journey in Harrisburg, we were super persistent. I mean, we had signs, We had literature, and we were there for 10 plus hours at the Capitol, like talking to people, shaking hands, going into like the committee meeting. So that way they could see our faces and our signs and know that like, we're not leaving until this is passed. Be persistent. Part of being willing to learn is taking feedback. So the people that you value and the people who are on your side, they're going to give you feedback. And some of it's going to feel great, like, oh, you do so great at this and you do so great at that. And some of it is going to be constructive. Take that and learn from it and adjust it for next time, because we're all human and we're all going to make mistakes. And then see challenges as an opportunity to think critically. And I think we do this really well as people with disabilities, because we live in a world that is largely made for able-bodied people. And we are always thinking of how to do this, how to do that. What if someone parks in those lines? So I feel like naturally, as people with disabilities, we're pretty good at this. But see any challenge as an opportunity to think critically and think differently. And I put teamwork makes the dream work. That's what I tell my students all the time. And I make them do group projects, and they don't always love it because they're like, well, I just really want to work by myself. Well, guess what? In real life, and when you're doing advocacy and trying to get like legislation passed, you can't do it all. And if you're a good leader, you don't do it all. You empower other people to help you achieve that goal. Because a leader isn't just, oh, I got this. Like, let me do it. Let me do this. Like, that's gonna literally kill you. Like, you're gonna be exhausted. Empower other people to do it. Questions here so far. I did a lot of talking. I would love to like process through other people's thoughts about like what they want to advocate for. I know insurance was a common theme. So any thoughts?
For you, in terms of advocacy, what was the most challenging bit? Was it talking to the representatives? Was it like getting the information for the infographics? Was it actually like reaching out to people? Like, in your experience, what was like the most challenging piece to overcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as far as that specific, sorry, I'm like getting tongue tied, as far as that specific piece of legislation, it was so important that we got it passed in a timely manner. Because like I had friends who needed, income limits, like upped in marriage, like equality, like a little different. So I think the most challenging part was getting people to respond. Like, we sent so many emails. We posted on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, like infographics, getting people to fill out like why they support the bill. And we would share all of that. And we would tag representatives. We would email, we would call every day. We would follow up, multiple times a day. And there were a couple representatives that just didn't respond. And they were the ones that had the power to pass it through a committee before it went through another committee. And they, it was hard to get them to respond. So that's when we decided just to go up there and hold our signs and like meet them face to face. Like, hey, you're not going to call me back, or you're not going to respond to my email or my Instagram post or my like live video, then I am at your door. Like, here I am. So I think that was the most challenging part, because like, you can't control other people. Like, we are not puppet masters. So that was the most challenging part, was getting people to respond.
There is a question in the chat. It's from Lena. It says, how do you start a nonprofit organization?
So it's different for each state. But there are state resources on like your, drawing a blank. like Chamber of Commerce site. Lena, you and I can connect like offline. But there are resources there. And I know for Pennsylvania, like we had to become a foundation first, and then we had to do this, and then we had an interview, and it was like a pretty lengthy process. But yeah, other questions? Like, and I'd be happy, seriously, Lena, to talk to you offline. Or like anyone who has a similar question. All right. Oh, that's not supposed to be there. I was supposed to delete that. Something to note is that meaningful change, like in society, takes a minimum of 3 to 5 years. So keeping that in mind, like when we're making change, whether it's in our local community with like, hey, we need these sidewalks adjusted, or we need more education in our school about disability and representation. Like that's my current mission. It takes 3 to 5 years to get people like to actually change and change their mindset. So keep that in mind and continue to go back to your why. Any other questions? I think I see something else in the chat. Oh, yes. It's if you're a manual wheelchair user and have not yet, please drop your name in the chat to be entered to win a set of free Kendra tires, because they are sweet, guys. They are so sweet. But other questions or things that you want to kind of like process through about your advocacy journey, like what do you guys need? I want to be here to be a resource to you.
I think for me, what just really stuck out is just, just what you said now, meaningful change takes 3 to 5 years. Like, I don't think I ever thought about that, like, yeah, I mean, you sit and want something to change, and then, you go through all the process and all that. And it's like, holy cow, that does take like 3 to 5 years when you think about it.
Yeah, like, and even to get people to like change their mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just explained, like that was the biggest hurdle, was getting people to respond. But guys, sometimes like people view us as disabled people as like less than, right? That's a societal change that needs to happen. And we can't like change them. We can show up and show them who we are and like make a seat at the table for us to have these discussions, right? And that's why what we're doing here is so important. But ultimately, they have to make the change. They have to be like, oh yeah, well, Jackie, like she's disabled, but she rocks it. She does this and she does that, right? Like they have to come to that conclusion. And because they haven't come to that conclusion yet, doesn't mean that the work that you do like doesn't matter. It does matter. We can't get that validation from outside sources because we will wait and wait and wait. And I know Jessie hates waiting. I hate waiting. It's a humbling experience to wait sometimes, but like that's something I'm learning. Like my worth doesn't come from people clapping for what I do. Like, nope, not where I'm getting it from. So. Other questions?
So you just made like a great segue to what I was already going to comment on anyway. So like you've already kind of mentioned the brand that I'm building and kind of you've explained it extremely well. But I'll even take it one step further because you just said it. It takes all the things that you just said, but it also the main philosophy behind the brand that I'm building, Set Your Wheels in Motion, is if you can find out what your personal foundation is, what your personal identity is, what your personal purpose is, what your personal passion looks like for you individually, because it looks different for everyone individually. But if you can find what that looks like for you personally, it will allow you to develop a championship mindset, because it's been my experience with a person with a physical disability. I have spina bifida and I'm 34 years old, but I've used my mindset to overcome and achieve any obstacle or thing I want to accomplish. But it takes things like knowing what your foundation is. For me, it's my family and my strong circle of friends, like you mentioned, Jess. It's my identity. For me, that's my identity in Christ. It may look like something different for everyone else. For me, my purpose is advocacy work and pretty much putting myself out there as an example, not a perfect example, but an example like, hey, I've done this, this, and this because of this, this, and this. You can do it too. And then everyone should have a passion in life, because that's what fuels you even further, excites you even further, and keeps you motivated to keep going when things do get tough. Like you said, Jess, you're not always going to get great feedback. It's constructive feedback, but not always going to be great feedback. Things are going to happen that are not always positive, but they're still going to give you a learning experience to build on, to take it one step further, to go further from that point forward. So I think everything you said, other than explaining what you did so beautifully, my brain and my 4 pillars, I think everything else that you said, it does take the village. It does take persistence. It does take humbling yourself to realize, hey, I need to get better on this, or I need to do this and stop being whatever, because doing this will build me even stronger, which will then get my overall purpose in life that much further down the road.
Right. It takes all of those experiences. Exactly.
I think for me, I advocate for people with disabilities, specifically for mothers with disabilities, because I'm a mom of 2 and I'm a writer. So I do that through my writing. The hardest thing to navigate through is not really advocacy, it's getting people to understand who aren't disabled, because there's so many ableists out there and they don't even know that they're ableists. And sometimes that gets a little overwhelming.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I know, like, I'm not a mother yet, like, but I know, like, I have friends who have disabilities and are mothers, and like some of the feedback they get is like horrible, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to stay grounded in your why. You're doing it for yourself and other mothers who happen to have disabilities and are rocking motherhood life. Like, sorry, it doesn't look like that picture that you see on TV, but that's not what any like motherhood looks like. Like,
Right.
I don't think, but
No, it does not.
So-
I have an able-bodied mother, and growing up, it didn't look like that for me either. So
right. So like, I like share your story, like share it. And I would love to connect with all of you like offline. So please like reach out to me if I can be a resource to you. Like I would be thrilled. Like I want to help empower you to share that journey about motherhood and disability and start changing people's mindsets, like, and how you can fight insurance and all of that, because there are frustrating things. But like I said, it took a combination of horrible moments and like horrible feelings, things that I don't like to feel, to make that change. So the last thing that I have up here, oh my gosh, guys, I am struggling with this PowerPoint, is a thank you, because I always start with gratitude, except for this presentation, because it just fits so nicely. But seriously, like Wheel With Me Foundation, they have, I don't know, Jackie, like what, 4 empowerment like weeks throughout the year-ish? Yeah. So make sure
we are trying to do one every quarter.
Okay, that's what I thought. Like,
yeah.
And they always create like safe spaces to talk and share and just connect. And I can't stress enough how important like the networking is. Other like-minded people. Like right before I came here, I was meeting with a bunch of women who are aspiring leaders, some of them who are more mature in their leadership and some who aren't. And just like finding people, finding opportunities, making a literal seat at the table. And the good thing is, guys, we bring our own seat already. So like, we just got to make the room. But seriously, like Wheel With Me Foundation always does an amazing job. And I'm just so excited to be here. I will type my email in the chat in a moment once my computer gets it together. And I would love if you reached out at any point. So yeah, let's see here. Typing it in.
All right. Well, if no one else has any additional questions for Jess, I'm gonna tell everyone, thank you guys all so much for spending another hour of your night this week with Wheel With Me and the webinars. All the information that Jess shared with us was super phenomenal. I think we can all take a lot of the stuff that she shared and just push it to the maximum after this. The winner of the Kenda Tires, and please don't hate me if I say your name wrong, Brendanda, did I say that right? Did I say that correctly? You are the winner of the Kenda Tires.
Yeah, it's Redonda.
Redonda, you are the winner of the Kenda Tires. So if you can send an email to info@wheelwithme.org with your name, address, and then what size tires you have, and we can contact you about that. We have one event left tomorrow. We have, oh, Jackie.
Sorry. It's info@wheelwithmefoundation.org, not info@wheelwithme.
I'm typing it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
Sorry.
Nope, don't be sorry. That's okay. So as I was saying, we have one more event for tomorrow. We have Anessa speaking about employment. She's with the All Abilities recruitment. I think if I'm saying that correctly, my notes are kind of pulled back, but
yes, she will be talking about how to build a resume, how they work as a company to be an advocate for people with disabilities to get employed, all those things.
Yes, so we will send a link with Jessica's first session from spring or summer, I think it was. Summer, we had her. We have an event from the recording from the last one we're gonna throw with this recording. So keep an eye out for your email. We'll have this event, the last one, just in case you want to refreshen up on the things that she had from last time, and with a link for tomorrow. So I really hope we can see you guys for the last night of Empowerment Week. So thank you again, Jess, and thank you all again for spending an hour with us tonight.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.